Kyle Klingman with Track Wrestling. We have Ethan Kyle, head wrestling coach at Stillwater High School. Not just head wrestling coach, first year head wrestling coach. He was at Oklahoma State as an athlete. He was at Wyoming as an assistant coach, now in a new role. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Kyle. Thanks for having me on, man.
Well,
Excited to talk.
yeah, you are head coach, but we also have to talk about what else you are. You're an adaptive PE teacher. What is that?
Yeah, adapted PE. So it's basically just PE class with special ed students. So it's really a blast. It's a lot of fun. You never know what you're going to get. There's a lot going on, but it's been cool to learn. I got my undergrad in physical education, so I'm learning to apply it like 12, 13 years later. So it's been fun.
What was that process like to make a decision to leave an assistant coaching role at Wyoming with Mark Branch and go back into the high school coaching game and go this route?
Yeah, well, it came at a time where, there was all kind, there was nothing really going on. It was just kind of a boring time of the year. It was like the Groundhog Day, back in April and May, right? When actually everything was just a mess. It was crazy. It was really a crazy time. uh, you know, we were week to week on recruiting, getting pushed back. We had to bring some kids in um, and the season had just been canceled. And, you're hearing these rumors about what's coming next. Do our seniors get another year? And it was just a crazy tumultuous time. And believe it or not, I was actually up in the Tetons at my in-laws for most of it. When they canceled the NCAA tournament, we loaded the kids up and said we might as well, take a vacation here. My wife was able to work remotely, so we went up there, and then 2 weeks to spread the curve turns into 10 months, right? So now it's like, what the heck? But so it was a crazy time, and more than anything, and it was a crazy idea from the get-go. Mark Perry Sr. was really the kind of the catalyst and really drove the idea. And I've known those guys. I mean, I grew up with little Mark. We wrestled in, I don't know, fifth or sixth grade or something for the first couple of times, and so I've known those guys forever. And then obviously when I was here for 7 years, Mark Perry Senior was he was around. Chris was a young guy at the time, but and Mark Jr. was was on the other team. But I hit it off well with those guys. And so when Mark brought up the idea, I mean, it was crazy, but it also made sense. I was getting to that point where it's like, you know, Division I and college athletics, there's a lot of really qualified guys, and there's only a handful of jobs, and just looking forward. I mean, I love Mark Branch to death. I mean, I own, almost my entire professional career has been, you know, connected with him. But at the same time, you're like, what's my end game? Where do I go next? And just kind of some of what comes with running a program, that autonomy and that engagement. Branch did a great job of incorporating us assistants, but at the same time, you kind of feel that I felt that urge, right? I felt the urge to move into that kind of leadership role. And obviously it's a much different levels that I had kind of forgotten about, that have had my eyes opened up to over the last 6 months. But just all these things that lined up. Zach Esposito is one of my best friends for more than half of my life now, and we're both, he and his wife and my wife and I are godparents to our kids and those kind of things. And Coach Smith has always been, a huge impact, influence on my life, and knowing that they're still involved. Coach's son is on the team. Coach has another son coming up, and just those kind of extra things that made it like, at first I was going, and I hit up guys like Zach and Coleman, my buddies, that are like, all right, I'm going to say something here, and I want you to give me your honest reaction. I'm thinking about taking the Stillwater job. And they're like, I thought that's what this was going to be, because I sent one of those texts like, hey, can we talk soon? And they were both like, I kind of thought that's what you were going to ask me. And I'm like, it's crazy, right? It's crazy. And they're like, no, I mean, as soon as that job kind of opened up, they're like, I wonder if Ethan's if he would be interested in that. So at the point in my life, I've got two little kids, actually two under 3 years. It was just, it's a good opportunity to settle into a life, and we love it. It's been one of the best decisions I made. Going to Wyoming, asking my wife on a date, and making this decision have been the best choices in my adult life so far. So
You said something interesting there where you said you kind of had to learn what the level difference was between high school and college. What have you learned about going back to high school, being in college?
oh man, we don't have enough time to talk about what I've learned. I would say that probably the most important, or the things that kind of stand out are just where these guys are in their journey, and their maturing process. It's you kind of take that thing for like, it's easy to rib our going back to Wyoming. It's easy to rib our freshmen because I mean, they're so wet behind the ears, and they're moving out on their own for the first time in quite some time, or being away from their parents, I should say. And so it's like, you just take for granted they're not adults yet. I mean, I guess that's what I'm trying to get around to here is they're not adults. Like, I'm used to dealing with some kids that have been paying their bills and have been managing life on their own, and these guys haven't yet. And through no fault of their own, they're getting there. And so just some of those things that you kind of take for granted. I'm just learning to slow it down a little bit, and but at the same time, especially on this team, this team right now is it's pretty wild. There's probably 7 or 8 kids that will wrestle in Division I at some point in their career, on this team. So you still see like it kind of in seed form that there's some serious dudes, and they're hungry as heck, and they haven't channeled it yet, right? Those college guys, they know where their sweet spot is. They know where the guardrails are, and these young guys are just, they're yet to be cultivated, but they've got it. That's for sure. They've got that desire and that drive.
You have a ton of good kids in the program, and of course, Stillwater High School is close to Oklahoma State, which is in Stillwater. You went to Oklahoma State. What's the dynamic between your high school and the college program?
Yeah. So, clearly that was a major factor. Like, I mean, I'm competitive. I'm hungry. I want to get guys to the very tip top, of the sport, And so it was like, can I just drop all the way down, to the high school level, and be, and feel, professionally fulfilled, and knowing what is in place here over the years. People, I framed it up this way in a previous interview, that Stillwater, Oklahoma is a mecca for wrestling, right? And people, people move towards the mecca. And so, whether it's kids coming in from surrounding areas, as youth, when they start to catch that fever, that wrestling fever, or, knowing that we have those things in place, that, kids can come down during high school. Um, it's just baked into the cake. I didn't have to do that. And so it's a huge blessing. It's not something that I take for granted. And it's not something I don't have to do. I don't have to go recruit anymore. That was one of the big changes, that from a family standpoint and home life standpoint, it was, freeing up more family time and quality time when I'm not at the gym or on the road. So I don't have to recruit, but the nature of the town and all those other pieces that you talked about are in place, and it really kind of takes care of itself.
Do you have a lot of people reaching out to you to want to move to Stillwater? And if you say the Mecca, it is a Mecca, 34 NCAA team championships. Do you get people reaching out saying, hey, I'd like to move into the Stillwater area. How do I make
I
it?
mean, Especially in this day and age, I've come to find out that the wrestlers, the kids, they're more connected than certainly than I ever was, back in the day. But the kids really do it themselves. They talk so much, and it's just kind of part of the culture. There's, people are willing to devote themselves to, they'll uproot their lives. Parents will make those huge sacrifices for their kids. And to be able to parlay that into, college education and beyond, it really just kind of does itself. So I haven't fielded many inquiries so far, but it's really just kind of organic. It's the pieces are in place. Like, I know I'm repeating myself here, but it just kind of takes care of itself. And when, people know that I'm here, that all this stuff is available, then it really just kind of handles itself. So, but at the same time, I shouldn't make it sound like, oh, it's going to happen all the time. I mean, that's a huge thing for for a family to uproot, and to move here. So, I'm thankful for it, but no, it hasn't been crazy so far.
How does your mind work as far as how you access information and get information? So if I think about you as an Oklahoma State wrestler, you are on 4 NCAA team championships. You were a one-time starter, fourth in the Big 12 tournament one time. Were you watching and observing and learning about how to be a good coach during that time?
Man, that's a great question. And I mean, I part of being a head coach is you got to talk about yourself. I've always kind of had an allergy to it, but and so yeah. So in college it was, and then you look back on it and it's crazy. So the guys that I hung out with, quickly, it was like Coleman Scott was, one of my main training partners, and I mean, buddy all the time. Zach Esposito, Chris Pendleton. I mean, Chris Pendleton and I drove a 1987 Jeep without air conditioning from Lemoore, California back to Stillwater, because we were running some camps out. We were counselors, I should say. We were counselors at camps out in Lemoore. But Kevin Ward, a staple, and then guys that aren't coaching yet, but Jake Rochalt and Steve Mako, these guys that we hung out with, it's like, lo and behold, we're all a bunch of coaches. And so even during our time, it was, I mean, Coleman and I used to joke, like, as we were warming up, we would kind of, we were, between the two of us, we could almost always nail what practice would be. Like, today's going to be a controlled warm up, a semi-open drill, 2 matches. And then even like what kind of conditioning, not just how much, but we could nail it. And so I think we all just had that natural affinity towards, that analytical process, of being plugged into our training and stuff like that, which, parlays to, where we all, end up as professionals. So, I was always that way. I mean, I have my notebooks, whenever we move, we just move, you start clicking through some of those old boxes of stuff. And I mean, I still have my notebooks from high school with training logs and workouts that I was drawing up on my own and stuff. So without a doubt. And then, we work for the Wizard, Coach Smith. It's unbelievable the amount of technique that we were exposed to. And, thankfully I do have those notebooks, and then I just never stopped. I mean, we lived it, athletically, competitively. I didn't have the career I wanted, but, it wasn't for lack of engagement. I've lived it. I mean, I've been involved in wrestling unbroken since, 4th or 5th grade. So just building up that knowledge base is definitely goes back to Coach Smith. But even before that, with, my dad was, hyper analytical. Every morning I woke up, I had a 3x5 card waiting for me on the kitchen table of what my assignments for the day were, from a training standpoint. So, it's been cultivated for sure.
while we're in that vein of talking about yourself, even though you don't like doing it, but what is it about you? Because when you think about it, fourth at the Big 12 once, so you don't have these monster athletic credentials yet. Eric Guerrero picks you as a training partner for the 2004 Olympics. Mark Branch says, I want you to come to Wyoming as the coach. What do you think you have that other people don't with maybe better athletic credentials?
I mean, I think my, again, I hate saying it, but like my knowledge of the sport, from the technical side of it, um, I have, I, I'd like to think at least that, that I am plugged in. When I was in college, I mentioned that Chris and I were working at camp. Actually, K-Dub was with us too, but, I worked camps. I went to camps with Branch, and, as a college guy, I was able to hold my own during a session, whether, he asked me to show something, I could break it down. I had that kind of natural, tendency as a coach, as an instructor. So I think that went a long way. But like I said, I mean, I was on a team with, the guys that kept me off the team were Johnny Thompson, Nathan Morgan, Coleman Scott. It's like these guys, it wasn't for lack of try, or it wasn't for that I was way off the mark. I'm losing to NCAA champions and All-Americans. So, and just, I would say that Eric, it was certainly a timing, right place at the right time. I came in, I was a true freshman in 02, 03. So the year before the Olympic year. So just kind of naturally being Eric's size and being, when my phone rang, I answered it. And whether it was Saturday morning or Sunday morning or Tuesday before practice started, I was willing to go in and drill with Eric and wrestle with Eric. So, answering the call as much as anything, get up, dress up, show up. I've always been able to do that. And so, if you're a disciplined guy and you stick to it, great things can happen, and certainly I'm proof of that.
How has high school wrestling changed when you were in high school till now?
These kids are way better than I was. And these, my counterparts, it's funny. I saw the Metcalf, story on Flow the other day, and the video of Chase, I broke my ankle about a week and a half before that tournament, but Vasquez and Metcalf would have been in my bracket, at senior nationals. So, now those, obviously there's always been some dudes that can really get after it, but by and large, I mean, I think the information age that we're in, I mean, we had to VHS record a 2-hour NCAA finals that were all cut up on ESPN. That's where we got our technique, once a year. And then every once in a while, we had a friend that lived up in Iowa that would send us recordings of Iowa Public TV of duels, so that's what we had. Like I watched Schwab and Guerrero wrestle that same match a few hundred times to break down everything about it, so we didn't have, these kids can click on and they can see Kyle Dake's claw ride. They can see John Smith's entire encyclopedia of technique. They can watch Cale Sanders. It's just all at the tip of their fingers. So I think it's just driven the level, now, guys above like winning above replacement. It still boils down to the individual, but altogether the technique is just, the skill level it's through the roof. I mean, it's through the roof. I'm wrestling with, when I get here and I work out with Kiel Hughes, he's a 10th grader at the beginning of his 10th grade season. It's like, I can't even hardly show him anything. He knows it all. I can tighten it up here and there, but it's unbelievable how exposed these guys have been to high level stuff. So I'd say that's the biggest difference.
What's your process on guiding your wrestlers to that next level? As you said, you probably have 7 Division I athletes. So just take Carter Young, Northwestern, Teague Travis, Oklahoma State, and then Ferrari's going to Oklahoma State. how do you guide them and make sure they make the best decision for themselves?
Yeah. So, I mean, my biggest thing, I'm going to kind of, I'm going to dovetail what my main focus as a recruiter was, is that whenever I had guys, on campus, I always made it a point to say that whether or not you have success, in the NCAA has like 5% to do with what you do with wrestling shoes on in a singlet. 95% of your success will be based on how well you can manage your life, how well you can manage, everything outside of wrestling. And so, being able to plant that seed with guys now to um, be disciplined with their time management, be disciplined with the way they approach the sport, be disciplined with their social lives. I think that's my biggest thing that I can do to help them along. The X's and O's is one thing, but these guys, they're putting the time in, they're seeking out the best partners all year long and the best training environments. So, as much as anything, like, is trying to instill that idea that, who you are as an individual is going to be so much more, impactful on your success on that next level than, can you imitate all those guys I was talking about, their technique? It's like, that's just not it. It's just not, it's not the biggest thing. So, I mean, I look forward to that. And then also, like, I also had that experience with Bryce Meredith, right? And that's a really unique experience of a kid that went to a school. Sorry, you get a taste of the public school system here. We're good for another 5 minutes. Finding that right fit. Bryce has had a bunch of great interviews on the right fit, and that you can have success, without an orange or a black and gold or a blue and white singlet on. You know what I mean? It's like, you can go other places and have that success. So teaching the guys that it's the right place at the right time. I mean, myself, it's like, there's plenty of people that ask me, like, did you ever think of transferring, when Coleman Scott and Nathan Morgan were the 25 and the 33 pounder that were a year younger than you, it's like, yeah, I did, but I made a commitment. And so it's like, try and get that on the front end. Find a place where you can go and compete, and there's, and it's got to be a right fit, the whole thing. So I think just like knowing some of those pitfalls that great kids that go to the wrong place, fall into, and being able to share those real experiences, and like a little bit more than just, oh, don't go there because you won't start. Like, that's the worst thing to say to a kid. Because if they're a real competitor, they're gonna like, of course I'm going to start, and I'm going to beat my head against the wall. And that's, kind of going back to like, how did I end up where I am? Because I kept beating my head against the wall, and in a roundabout way, I had a lot to do with the success, because if those guys had an easy day, I would have beat them, so they didn't have easy days. And we had a bunch of guys on our team at Oklahoma State that wouldn't allow for it, that wouldn't allow Chris Pendleton to take a day off. They wouldn't allow, Jake Rochelle to have an easy day. They had to bow up on a daily basis. And so, being able to show them that, I think can help.
Well, you got to give me a good John Smith story and a good Mark Branch story, if you got one of each.
Man, I shouldn't feel like I've been put on the spot, but, Coach, I don't know maybe just a fun one, because I think of it every once in a while, especially now it's deer season. And a lot of our guys, we've rearranged our Saturday morning workouts depending on the weather for deer season these last few weekends. But a funny coach story was, it was actually a Sunday workout. We came in and coach had a big Band-Aid on his eye, and we're like, what the heck? He's like, fell out of a deer stand. Fell out of a deer stand and cut his eye on a fence or something. And we're like, you've got to be kidding me. You're a 6-time world champion and you fell out of a deer stand. He's like, it could have been worse. A lesser man would be dead right now or paralyzed. I pulled a move when I was halfway down. I spun around. I sacrificed my eye, but a lesser man would have been dead by now. So that was fun. I mean, Gosh, there's so many awesome stories.
All right. Well, just as far as the upcoming high school season, such a interesting year in so many ways. How do you compete in this COVID era, and what do you do?
Sheesh, you wake up every day and you take a shot of medicine and just, you never know what's going to happen. Um, I mean, we're doing our best. We had our first dual meet canceled last Thursday. We just had a tournament canceled a day and a half ago for this weekend. I mean, I've said it like ad nauseum at this point that we always preach as coaches to control what you can control and leave the rest aside. And that's just taken on such a whole new meaning this year. I mean, quite literally, you just, whether because you were sitting next to someone in an English class, now you have to stay at home for 14 days, or we don't get to go wrestle. It's just, you just wake up and you do what you can with who's there, and you're flexible and you make the most of it. But thankfully I'm in Oklahoma, and for the most part, if anything can possibly continue on, it will in this state. These folks are, they're self-reliant and they get after it. And so, I mean, it's been wild, but as much as anything, you just try and stay here in the middle. You don't get too wound up about anything, and you don't get too bummed out. It's just been crazy, but you take a step back and you go, there's a lot bigger fights, a lot bigger battles going on out there. And so it's easy to get closed in on yourself, and think that, you're losing this or that. But at the end of the day, we live in an unbelievable country with unbelievable opportunities. So just count our blessings every day. I mean, today's the feast of the Immaculate Conception in the church. So, our Mother Mary says it better than anybody. We're handmaids of the Lord. And so we'll follow his lead, and whatever comes will come. And as long as we're doing our best and living each day as hard as we can, that's it.
Oklahoma is a monster wrestling state, a lot of history, especially there in Stillwater. Do you get a lot of people when you're out and about want to ask you about wrestling and want to know about the team?
Oh, for sure. I mean, all over. It's kind of like, it's pretty wild. Like, especially when I first moved back, even before I was like all swagged up, like today, I finally have some Stillwater gear on, but just kind of moving around town, people, obviously the ears and when you're 5'7" and you got mangled ears and a thick neck, you don't hide very well, and you never hide in Stillwater with that build. But it's fun, as much as anything. It feels good to be a part of a community and kind of a part of a tribe. So, but I knew that, when we were in college, we really played it up back then. I mean, you really hardly ever left the house without the wrestling Pete on your chest. So, it's just part of it. It's great to be in a community that cares, that it matters. And, that was a big part of the decision, to know what kind of community we'd be raising our kids in. So, where they're going to have awesome opportunities, and they're going to be in a place where people care about what we're doing. So it's really helpful.
How'd you like having Gary Calcagno as your strength and conditioning coach?
It was awesome. It was hard. Those are some fun stories. And most of which I'd have to edit explicitly for language. I mean, he's a strength coach in every sense of the word, but Gary's he's unbelievable. I mean, super good guy. He's, I get to pick his brain now, and have awesome workouts, but he's a huge, 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 huge factor for the success at Oklahoma State. I mean, that guy, he's plugged in, and there's nobody that cares more than he does. He lives and dies with us as student athletes. So he's been awesome, and I mean, just such an awesome guy to be around. I love spending time with G, for sure.